Hey managers, welcome back to my channel where I share book reviews on personal and business growth, job tricks and hacks, my growth journey as a startup co-founder and manager. My name is Dorcas Akaba, and if you're watching this video, it means you're already on the journey and the path to scaling your growth. You already know that everyone alive and breathing, we desire growth in one area or another, but we're often led back by clauses sometimes unimaginable, sometimes unnoticeable, or even considered inconsequential. My own growth journey has been full of moments where I've had to pause, to reassess, and push forward even when it wasn't convenient. In the last video, I shared what I learned from the first 3 chapters of the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. If you haven't watched the video yet, so do well to check the link in the description or just check it out. The first 3 chapters I reviewed of this book. But today we're going even deeper. In this video, I'll be sharing insights from chapter 4, 5, and 6. Lessons that have personally challenged me to reflect, to stay consistent, and to create the right environment for real-time growth. Grab a note or just listen in and let's figure this growth thing out together. Chapter 4, the law of reflection. Like Peter F. Drucker was quoted in the chapter, he said, follow effective action with a quiet reflection. From quiet reflection will come even more effective action. Follow effective action with a quiet reflection. From a quiet reflection will come even more effective action. Well, can you relate with? Can you imagine what this means? Even when we're doing the right thing, we have to still reflect. Reflection is not only about negativity. It's not only about after we failed. It's all about when things are going. It's also about when things are going well, seemingly going well. We reflect and see what we're doing well and double up on it, 10x what's going well, right? Let me quickly share some highlights of the lessons learned from this particular chapter, chapter 4. 1. I've learned that reflection is essential whether you are succeeding or have already failed. It's not only an after failure ritual. So reflection is essential whether you're succeeding or you've already failed. It's good to reflect, right? Because it's going to help you to spot what is going well and to double up on it, what is potentially going to go wrong, and avert it, right? 2, it's not just about growth or success deadlines. It's also about the process of staying on top of your game through investigation, incubation, illumination, and illustration. Don't worry, I'm going to throw more light about these 4 I's just highlighted here in the second point. Reflection detects what level we are on, what could potentially go wrong so we can fix, what we are doing well, and how to avoid unnecessary mistakes that could halt our growth or success. 3. Reflection increases our chances of staying consistent on a growth course. I have had to consciously imagine while reviewing or reading this book, and this chapter in particular, I've had to consciously imagine the depth of damages I've always incurred whenever myself, for example, embark on a project full of energy and enthusiasm and motivation, particularly such ones where I don't have all the dots figured out or put together, without factoring in a time to reflect while on the course to see how I can fix some things that could potentially go wrong while still on it. The result is I've often meet glitches and disruptions, and because of this, I don't usually have remedies because I don't think along the process, right? I don't usually have remedies to avert it, and my entire effort will come to screeching halt. Have you had a moment where you looked back at a situation and suddenly understood it differently because, of course, you've reflected? Have you had such moments in your life? I'm sure it's something you can relate to. That's reflection in action. Growth is not just about moving forward. It's also about pausing to understand what's working, what's not, and what needs to change. Now, John Maxwell described 4 processes and ways reflection help us grow. And that are the four I's I had already mentioned. I think the second point, the four I's. Number one is investigation. Investigation entails digging deep into our experiences. You know that feeling when something happens and later you think, oh, I should have handled that differently. That's where investigation comes in. Instead of just moving on, take a moment to ask, what lesson did this teach me? How can I apply it next time? This investigation helps us not bow to failure or to disruptions, but to understand a better approach, a better way to do things subsequently. John Maxwell talked about keeping a journal or even just mentally reviewing key moments in our day can help turn life experiences into life lessons. Two, the second I, incubation. Incubation is about letting insights to sink in while reflecting. Have you ever noticed how great ideas sometimes hits you when you are not actively thinking about them, like you're taking a shower or you're taking a walk? That's because learning needs time to settle. You must have been researching about solution to a particular problem and issue or something you have learned earlier, but all of a sudden a great sudden idea hits you and it's what you actually needed to fix something at that time. Do you understand? In order to incubate, we need to take time to be still and process things, not necessarily freaking out or wallowing in self-pity or even become depressed. Joseph Maxwell also talked about avoiding rushing into the next big thing because growth needs breathing space. That thing that happens to us, those of us that are still learning to stand, are still trying to be strong in our growth journey and effort. You know what happens when you're trying to do something, and all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt, and you just rush into the next big thing without even taking time to reflect while the first one failed, just because you're trying to prove a point or you're trying to avoid not being tagged a failure or a serial failure. Come on, life is personal. Nobody cares. It's all about you. You need to give growth a breathing space. You need to take time out to reflect before going into the next project, right? Also reflect on past experience. It also helps us to gain deeper understanding. Man, this is interesting, right? Yes, of course it is. The third I, illumination, the aha moment. Those times when suddenly everything clicks. Illumination is when reflection leads to a breakthrough. Like John Maxwell said, a new way of seeing things, a fresh perspective, or a realization that changes your approach. Like when you had a misunderstanding with someone based on assumption or after a failed trial of a new recipe or something, you did not follow the recipe well, and then all of a sudden you reflect, oh, what went wrong, this and that, and then all of a sudden you now oh, so this is what I missed. This is what I come to a sense of clarification. That's what reflection helps us to. The fourth I, illustration. In John Maxwell's work, it's the process of putting flesh on ideas while trying to connect the dots of your personal growth, your financial growth, your business, whatever it is. In moments of reflection, right, illustration helps us to connect the dots, explore our imagination and gain clarity. Reflection helps us to ask, focus and write questions, and also helps us stimulate creative thinking. Personally, I have come to realize that any phase of life, irrespective of the project or goal I am handling at that moment, any phase of life that I hardly create time to think well, I might just be engaging in activities without much to write home about at the end of the day. In summary, reflection is essential to help us nurture our ideas, projects, or creativity to success. John Maxwell talked about illustration being the process of putting flesh on ideas. A good reflection will help us stay consistent. Don't you think so? If we change our project goals, growth in whatever area with little pauses to investigate, incubate, illuminate, and illustrate, it will definitely bring us to a state of self-awareness. empowerment, and to stay consistent. You know what? Because most of the times, think about it, most of the time when we abruptly abandon things, it looks like we failed on a project or whatever it is. It's not because we are failures. I don't think so. There are some factors. Figuring out this through reflection, it really puts us in a state where we can forge ahead, where we can do better. Now let's dive into chapter 5, the law of consistency. Motivation gets us started, right? But discipline keeps us growing. After learning about the law of intentionality, the chapter 1, the law of awareness, chapter 2, the law of mirror, chapter 3, and the law of reflection, chapter 4, from the previous 4 chapters, I am beginning to think that most of the elements that usually hold my growth consistency are already out of the way. Maxwell in chapter 5 has highlighted key strategies to apply, right? So number 1, he said, know what you need to improve. We abandon things, we give up, we throw in the towel when it looks like there is no way out, right? We're overwhelmed. Have you ever felt overwhelmed trying to fix everything all at once? And then you didn't even have clarity. You didn't know how to forge ahead. John Maxwell talked about gaining clarity by identifying one area you want to grow in. To focus on small daily improvements. To avoid the traps of chasing quick fixes. That shortcut. Once you know what to work on, the next challenge is figuring how. When your reason is stronger than your excuses, like John Maxwell said, consistency becomes easier. So the fourth strategy to stay consistent, he said, know when to grow. Growth doesn't just happen by accident, so we have to be intentional. You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. He talks about scheduling our growth habits, attaching them to things that we already do, like listening to podcasts while commuting, tracking our or progress to stay motivated. The key here is to make growth a non-negotiable part of our life. Now let's dive into chapter 6, the law of environment. We've talked about the power of reflection, how consistency keeps us growing. Now let's take a step further, because personal growth doesn't just happen in isolation. Let's explore the power of the environment. Have you ever tried to change a habit or level up in life, but your surrounding made it almost impossible? That's what the law of environment is all about. Is your environment helping or hurting your growth? Is your environment conducive enough for your growth journey? Is your environment helping to enhance your growth? Now here, growth here now encompasses anything that you want to improve on, whether your finances, your academics, your career, your business. Is your environment helping that happen? And what makes up your environment? Now, like McCain was quoted in the chapter, he said, the first step towards success is taken when you refuse to be a captive of the environment you first find yourself. Sometimes the environment we find ourselves in makes us feel helpless. That's when we try to find justifications to why we should remain stuck or why we can't forge ahead. We try to the blame game, the self-pity that leads to depression, that leads to us being in the same spot year after year without significant change. Nido Kubin, as quoted in the chapter, also said, whether you are a success or a failure in life, whether you are a success or failure in life has little to do with your circumstances. It has much more to do with your choices. Irrespective of the conditions, the environment, we still have a choice to make. That's why we are human beings. That's why we were created with so much power and capacity. Sometimes we don't just understand this about ourselves. This is one thing that keeps me going. This is something that gets me excited, even in moments of depression. Just understanding the power I have to take decision whenever I want to and change the course of my life. It's such an empowering thought. It's such an empowering realization, right? Yes, the surrounding may play a huge role in how fast or slow you grow, but what choices do we need to make so we are in conducive surrounding where we will thrive and grow? Now, this chapter talks about how to create an environment that fuels success. Number one, assess your current environment. Take a moment and ask yourself, does your environment push you forward, keeps you stuck? Am I surrounded by people who challenge me or people who hold me back? Our growth is often influenced by the people, habits, and mindsets we engage in daily. The people we encounter or we have to deal with daily, they affect our growth, our habits, our mindsets, right? Number two is change yourself and change your environment. However, there are three ways growth can be impacted while you're trying to change yourself and your environment. If we, like John C. Maxwell said in the chapter, if you change yourself but not your environment, growth will be slow and difficult. But if you change your environment or don't change yourself, growth will be slow and slightly easier. This is something you can relate to. But if you change yourself and your environment, growth will be fast and more successful. If you try to change yourself but your environment still remains the same, it will be difficult. It will be slow. If you try to change your environment but you are not doing anything about yourself, growth will be slow and slightly easier, right? So the best thing here is to change ourselves and to change our environment so that growth can be more faster and more successful. The goal is to position ourselves in the places and around people that challenge us to level up. Number 3.3 says, change who you spend your time with. like Jim Rohn was quoted in the chapter as he famously said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most of your time with. Look around you, who is in your inner circle? Are they helping you grow or they are keeping you stuck? Do your audit. If you're serious about personal growth, surround yourself with people who inspire, challenge, and push you forward. Is this something you can relate to? Of course, it's something I can relate to. That's why at some point in my life personally, it looked like as if I had no friends. I just better Oyo than plenty. Let me not say everything. Point 4 says challenge yourself in your new environment. After you change your environment, let's say you've had to change circle of friends, change move from one place to another just so that you can be in the right environment or to position yourself for right opportunity. You have to challenge yourself in that new environment so that you don't remain the same. Changing your environment is only half the battle, right? So once you are in a better place, you have to push yourself to rise to the occasion. So take on new challenges. It's not after we change our environment we become comfortable. We do not step out of our comfort zone. We take on new challenges. We learn from those ahead of us. We step outside our comfort zone to stretch ourselves. Growth happens when we stretch beyond what's familiar. Strategy number 5 says, focus on the moment. Can you relate? Can you relate? I am someone that imagines the next thing, and how everything can come together and how the big thing can be boom. I'm that kind of person, right? But reviewing this chapter, I have got to see from John C. Maxwell's perspective why, instead of getting caught up in, it should stay in the moment to maximize the moment, to optimize the moment, instead of waiting for the perfect time to grow. Focus on the present moment with the little steps you're taking and what I can do to improve today, which will eventually improve tomorrow, right? So small steps taken daily lead to massive transformation. Strategy number 6 says, move forward despite criticism. Let's be real. Growth comes with challenges, and one of them is dealing with critics. People that don't even know where you're coming from, people that have no clue to where you're going to, who have no business talking about you. Yes, let's be real, it comes with criticism. Some people will not understand your journey. Some will doubt you. Some will try to bring you down. But here is the truth. Criticism is often a sign that you're doing something right? Instead of letting it stop you, use it as fuel to keep going. Growth isn't something that just happens. This is what I've come to learn from this chapter. Growth isn't something that just happens. It's something that we have to fight for. Reflect where you are. Be consistent in your efforts. Create an environment that supports your growth. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your growth, no one else is. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway in the comment section, right? And if you want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification so you don't miss the next video. Till next time, when I will be sharing the next three chapters, chapter 6, right? Chapter 7, 8, 9, right? Until next time, keep growing, keep pushing, keep becoming the best version of yourself.